We are now streaming. Take it away, Anna.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Anna Priest. I'm the chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee on Energy and the Environment. And this is our March 16th, 2022 meeting. Yep, it is 2022. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through these meetings virtually. And if there are any difficulties, we'll keep you posted. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the city's website. And there's my cat. Sorry if you can hear her. Let's see, we also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. And thank you for our guests joining us today as well. I'll now go through and introduce all the committee members who are participating virtually. Make sure to keep your microphones muted when you are not speaking. And if you have a question or you would like to speak, please use the raise hand button or unmute your microphone. But definitely try to keep your microphone muted when you're done speaking. So as I call your name, please say a quick hello. And Ann Keller.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Ann. Kim Austin.
Hello.
Hey, Kim. Maggie Golick.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Maggie. Tim Orman.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Chris Pelrine.
Quick hello.
Steve Barron.
Hey, hey.
Allison Ormsby.
Greetings.
And Michael Totten. Did Michael join? I thought he did.
Sorry. Hello. I was on mute.
Oh, hey, there you are. Wonderful. Let's see. We also have Bridget Herring, Kira Bullen. Not sure if Amber Weaver's with us today. Let's look at the whole list. Or Sage Turner, who is our city council liaison. She may be joining later. All right, so let's get started with today's agenda. But to help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud and do a vocal roll call in case there is a vote, which I don't believe there is anything to vote on today. Again, once we let all the presentations finish, we'll do question and answers. Make sure to use the little raise hand button if you have any questions. All right, first up, we will vote on the first item on the agenda, which is to approve January minutes. Is there a motion to approve? We'll do a motion, then a second, then we can always discuss any changes to be made.
I move that we accept the minutes from last meeting.
All right, Ann, is there a second?
I'll second.
Looks like, I think that was Michael went first. I couldn't really tell. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or any changes that need to be made to the minutes? All right, so we'll do a quick yay or nay. Ann.
Yay.
Kim.
Yay.
Maggie.
Yay.
Tim.
Yay.
Michael.
Yay.
Chris.
Yay.
Steve.
Yay.
Allison.
Yay.
And I am also a yay, so they pass. All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. I did not receive any public comment this week or for this meeting, so we will move on to the next item. 3 updates. First update in this list is the fiscal year 22 presentation by Bountiful Cities and the Asheville Buncombe Food Policy Council. We have Nicole Bo. Sorry, I knew I was going to do that. Nicole Heidenbow and Gina Smith.
Thank you. It's okay. It's German. It's it's a lot. It's Heinbach. I'm happy to be here with you all. No problem. Yeah, so I'm the co-director of programs for Bountiful Cities. And we have a contract with the Office of Sustainability of the City of Asheville. And so this is our mid-year report to you all. So I'll just mention before I kind of dig into these things that I believe that these slides were provided in advance, and it has been requested to not read all the language on the slides because there's a lot. So I hope that you all have a chance to look through things, and if you have any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer. And in the meantime, I'll just sort of highlight some items. So the main items that we have within our contract with the City of Asheville are supporting the maintenance and establishment of Asheville's edible parks, conducting activities and managing programs to increase food production in Asheville. And then the City of Asheville has an Asheville Edibles program, and we manage the community gardening aspect of that and support garden infrastructure and signage. So related to the edible parks, we've been steadily plugging along to organize work days. We've had 9 so far. We have more work days upcoming. Through the end of the fiscal year, we will have completed a total of, I believe it is 20 work days this year. And then also we've had a lot of additional activities taking place in the edible parks this year, including new beds and new community actions and activities. The next item, which is the largest item in our contract, is related to the support of community gardens in Asheville and Buncombe County. So this involves monthly newsletters in English and Spanish. We conduct monthly educational workshops. We've been actually supporting the development of brand new community gardens on city-owned land with that partnership with the City of Asheville's Asheville Edibles program, and helping to develop infrastructure and supporting the development of baseline metrics system for learning how many community gardens are operating in the area. Across those community gardens, what are they growing? How much are they growing? How many people are they serving? So that then year on year, we can measure progress. Here's some images from recent community garden workshops this fiscal year. And the last deliverable action that we have is related to infrastructure purchases. So we have been making purchases related to supporting the Asheville Edibles Gardens. In particular, the existing Asheville Edibles Gardens are at Murray Hill, and then also the Elder and Sage Community Garden, which is downtown. So we're supporting purchases in those areas, and we're going to continue to purchase signage materials for the edible parks as well. So here's an example of the Elder and Sage walkways, and we're going to be helping them replace those walkways. That's one of the infrastructure projects.
Is it okay if you ask some questions?
Please.
I haven't been keeping up with whatever the city's been considering for the lot that is directly adjacent to this one. Is there any overlap between this existing garden and any plans for that, whatever the appropriate name is for that area?
Right. So the Elder and Sage community gardeners were involved in the thinking and planning of the new community garden space. At this time, when construction commences, it will displace the existing location of the Elder and Sage Garden. And so at that time, we'll be supporting the garden to ideally transition into the new space, but it is also possible that the new space will come with new gardeners as well. So because construction hasn't started yet, we operate on annual contract agreements with each one of the gardens. And so the Elder and Sage Garden has another year of operating within within the space that they're in right now, and they primarily use container gardening. So it's not in ground, and if they need to move it, they could potentially.
Great. So it sounds like there's plans to maintain some sort of public garden in this area as part of the design that's underway.
Yes, in a nearby area, in an adjacent area, and it's still a little unclear exactly what the plans for that garden will look like. But yes, there is the intention to continue to maintain some sort of community gardening space there.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Stephen?
Hi. I thought I heard you say that you were going to be developing or working on metrics to measure output from the various community gardens.
Yes.
Do you have that? Yeah. At what stage is that? And do you have any preliminary numbers on what the baseline would look like?
So what we've done so far is we surveyed the community gardens that exist across Asheville and Buncombe County as to what types of metrics would be feasible for them to collect each year. And then also we purchased the equipment and supplies necessary to support gardens in being able to collect that data. For example, some gardens would like to be able to identify how much poundage of food is being given away through their garden, but they don't have scales. So we purchased scales and whiteboards and all kinds of equipment to support gardens in being able to establish those metrics year on year. Because many of the gardens didn't already have access to that type of equipment, this first year is going to be a little spotty in terms of the baseline data collection, but we are in the process of collecting that data. So we don't have any really good numbers yet, but the areas of data that will be collected are related to square footage of growing space, number of people engaged in the garden, number of people who receive produce from the garden, who are supported by the garden, and then number of varieties that are grown in the garden. That's an approximation, an estimate, and poundage of food that is distributed from the garden. And so gardens can select one or more of those different metrics that they feel comfortable and realistic in being able to provide each year.
And is your hope to be able to have some numbers this growing season, after this growing season, or
yes, that's correct.
Oh, great.
Yes, and we're actually sort of retroactively asking if anybody has access to any of those baselines for the previous growing season. We want to go ahead and put those in place. But yes, the strong measures will begin after this growing season. Thank you. Allison, do you have a question?
I do. Hi. The new what at one point was called the edible mile between New Belgium and the dog park. Is Bountiful Cities involved with that edible landscaping at all?
No, that's not something that we're involved with currently. I believe that we had representation in those talks a number of years ago, and that was probably 5 or 6 years ago when some of those community talks were taking place, but we have not been engaged in that work since that time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, Gina, are you up next?
Sure.
Awesome. We have Gina Smith from Asheville Buncombe Food Policy Council.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah. So this year, the Asheville Buncombe Food Policy Council has 5 planned actions for our contract with the City of Asheville Office of Sustainability. And to save on time, to keep this concise, instead of going through each of them before I begin, I'm just going to jump in and I'll explain each one as we go through the slides. So if you want to go to the first slide, the first action is our reparations work, supporting Asheville's BIPOC land advocates in developing land and food-based reparations and processes. This started back in 2020. In 2021, this was a city contract deliverable where we we convened a committee of individuals who did research and input gathering to create a list of or a process for determining recommendations for reparations related to food security harms caused by urban renewal policies. And this year we're operating as the Food Security Reparations Coalition. And this is phase 2 of that project. And we have very limited reparations work included in this year's contract because there's so much work being conducted in other departments, obviously. So the Office of Sustainability is not actively supporting our reparations organizing this year. We're just being contracted to keep them informed about the activities of the coalition and how the conversations are intersecting with the Food Policy Action Plan. So just to give you a little update on what the coalition is doing right now, our focus is on making sure that food security is included in the city's reparations efforts and to look for ways to collaborate with the Reparations Commission. We're also in the process of hiring a part-time contract coordinator for the coalition, which is really exciting. And we have a fiscal sponsor with Eagle Market Streets Development Corporation. We also have a committee that is working to develop a presentation for the Reparations Commission to inform the members about the historic impact of urban renewal policies on food security in Asheville and on the work that the coalition has already done. And these are just, this is some social media posts that we had done about hiring our coordinator and about urban renewal for Black History Month. Our second contract deliverable is attending these meetings and also meetings of the Urban Forestry Commission to look for potential areas of collaboration with the Food Policy Council. Currently, the only area of collaboration that I've identified with Sacee is actually one of our contract deliverables, and it's a Food Waste Reduction Month activities related to our Food Waste Solutions WNC. And Allison's involved in that too. And I have not found any potential areas of collaboration yet with the Urban Forestry Commission, but they only meet occasionally. So we still have plenty of time to look for those. Neighborhood Emergency Food Preparedness is our next contract deliverable. We have been developing new information materials, including details about involvement in COED community emergency response team trainings for distribution in the neighborhoods that we're working with right now. We're currently working with Shiloh, East End, Deaverview, South Side, and Nicole has prepared a report and shared it with the East End neighborhood that outlines the results of a survey that she did of residents of that neighborhood to gather input to inform the development of the neighborhood emergency food plan for that community. And Nicole has also nearly completed, I think, a food plan draft, which is really exciting. We're also in the very beginning stages of working with the Deaverview neighborhood to begin a neighborhood emergency food plan there. And it's really great that we have these two neighborhoods willing to work with us on neighborhood emergency food preparedness plans because they're so different. East End as a historic legacy neighborhood and Deaverview as a housing authority neighborhood. Working with those two neighborhoods will really inform this work moving forward with other neighborhoods in Asheville. And these are just some screenshots of the food survey report that Nicole developed and also some of the training opportunities. This is some of the information that will be included in the packets that we'll be distributing to the neighborhoods. The next deliverable is the Asheville Edibles map. And it feels like that work has been coming along slowly, but we really have made progress this year. So we've developed a project outline in collaboration with the Community Garden Network with some proposed platform updates, a proposed data maintenance plan, and proposed process for submitting new sites and available land to the site. And our next step will be meeting with the city's IT staff to review the proposal and decide what the next steps will be. And these are just screenshots of the Asheville Edibles map as it looks now. And the last contract deliverable is supporting Food Waste Solutions WNC. And I'm currently working as a leadership team representative for the Restaurants and Retailers Working Group and with the Education Working Group on social media strategies. I've also been helping Kira in the Office of Sustainability with some admin tasks and coordinating some events and activities. We've actually done a lot of really cool events in the past few months. In August, we had our quarterly meeting in person. I know it sounds crazy. Out at Blue Ghost Brewing with Danny's Dumpster. That was a great event. It was fairly well attended. In December, we had a really well attended cooking demo with Ashley English out at Bottle Riot. And in February, we did a tabling event at New Belgium Brewing Company. They did a release of a citrus rescue beer that was made from rescued citrus. And we were able to talk to people who came out to taste the beer. We handed out some materials. It was a lot of fun. It was super well attended, a lot of interest at that event. And coming up in April is Food Waste Reduction Month. Maggie and I have been working really hard on some social media strategies for that. And we are planning some activities, including a big party with Wicked Weed Brewing at the end of, actually it's going to be May 1st. And all of that's still in development right now. And those are just some, oh, we're missing one of the photos. I don't know what happened. Oh, well. There's one picture of the poster from the Citrus Rescue beer release, and that photo is Danny's Dumpster showing some black soldier fly larvae to folks out at the August quarterly meeting. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, thank you. That was an awesome update, Gina. I appreciate that. Chris, I wanted to let you know that that area you're talking about, some people refer to it as the pit of despair. If you Google...
I didn't want to say it out loud, Anna.
It's on the record now. I think officially the city calls it Haywood Street and Page Avenue properties. They have their master concept plan on the city's website. If you look that up, looks like there's a nice video of the plan. So hopefully we can get some edibles over there. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I love that park. I go there often with my kids. So.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be pretty awesome too, if we can ever get the ball rolling on it. Mm-hmm. Any questions for Gina before we move on?
Sure. Hey, Maggie.
Hi. I was about to ask you a question, then I thought, I could really take up a lot of time. But could you just talk briefly a little bit more about working with the different housing authority neighborhoods and what exactly is happening on the ground with them, and like as far as like community gardens go and things like that, and involvement?
With community gardens?
Or just whatever work is happening.
Yeah, I can speak to what we're doing with the Deaverview community right now as far as the emergency neighborhood food planning. Mm-hmm. I think Nicole would be the best person to speak to what's going on with community gardens. But yeah, with Deaverview, what we've done so far is we have an outdoor food pantry installed there. It was installed in October. It's been seeing a lot of traffic, which is great. And I think they're developing some mutual aid around that food pantry. So residents are all kind of working together to keep it stocked. It's a struggle for them, and they do need some support with it. So the Food Policy Council is working to find folks to help support with that. And also one of the residents who has been sort of in charge of the food pantry project is interested in pursuing a neighborhood emergency food plan there. So that's the next step, is organizing with her. She's also found 2 other residents who want to work on this project, and it's just a matter of getting together with them and deciding what our next steps are going to be.
And I'm happy to speak to follow up on the kind of second part of that. We're also talking right now with the South Side neighborhood about the potential of installing an outdoor pantry there. When the outdoor pantry project started in 2020, really in response to the increased need due to the pandemic, we at that time reached out to a number of housing authority properties, and there was some resident interest, but the housing authority itself, the administration, was not interested in that time in us installing pantries on the property. So there's been a shift since then. And since now there's a pantry in Deer Review, it sort of opens up the doorway to begin to work with additional housing authority properties around the city to help install outdoor pantries. So we're going to start with Southside on that and then move on from there. Additionally, related to the gardens, Bountiful Cities, separate from the contract with the city of Asheville and separate from the Food Policy Council, does support community gardens across the entire city. And actually, some of that is supported through the city contract. And so there are gardens in the Hillcrest neighborhood. There's a garden at Bartlett Arms. These gardens are all supported. And then, of course, the Southside Farm, it's becoming a farm now rather than a community garden, supports several formerly public housing authority properties there. And Piscaview used to have a garden that was active but has been dormant for some time due to a gap in leadership. So ongoing support of gardens in those communities as well.
And I also just want to follow up on the outdoor pantry question. In Deer Review, it was really interesting. The Housing Authority actually contributed funding to support the painting of that pantry. So that was kind of a great step, I thought, for them to show that kind of support.
Great, thank you.
Chris?
So these events sound really exciting. How do I find out about upcoming events and when they're happening and how to get involved?
Good question. So we're trying to have, so are you speaking about the food waste events specifically?
Yeah, the food, I guess I'm looking at that last slide. Yeah, the food waste events and just, the events with Danny's Dumpster and all of the above.
We're trying, our website, actually, it's, WNC Food Waste. Maggie, help me. It's WNCFoodWaste.org. Yeah. That's obviously the central location to find out about what's going on, but we are also trying to do a lot of social media. So Instagram, Facebook would be good places. And Maggie has developed an amazing month-long strategy for Food Waste Reduction Month that should keep everybody informed about what's happening every day. We're also, part of that's going to be also a home food waste challenge. So there'll be some prizes available to folks who participate in our Instagram and Facebook challenges. So it should be fun.
Great, thank you.
Allison?
Everybody can sign up for the newsletter on the WNC Food Waste website. Strongly encouraged.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's all really good information. I've just followed your Instagram page, so you have an extra follower there. All right. Next on the agenda is 3B. Fiscal year 22 presentation from Asheville Greenworks, Dawn Chavez. And I believe she joined us a little while ago.
I'm here. Thank you. Hi. Before I jump into Greenworks stuff, I just wanted to mention that the Urban Forestry Commission meets every month. There's also a tree protection task force that meets monthly. And I think probably better than collaborating with the Urban Forestry Commission would be collaborating with Greenworks because we do more programming that would be collaborative. And I know that the Food Justice Policy Council has worked also we've worked together on the food food waste workshops and composting workshops too, but we have more, I'm sure, that we can find ways to partner on. So Greenworks similarly has a contract with the city that we've had for the past, I think, for maybe going on 5 years now. And we have a variety of things that fall under that contract. Next slide, please. Or do I have control? No? I don't know if I do. Okay. No, I don't. So the areas that we work in include litter abatement, litter prevention and control through volunteer cleanups and waste reduction events, including hard to recycle and composting workshops, pollinator plantings and education, and urban forestry events and education. Next slide, please. As far as litter abatements go, as you all know, we've had 2 kind of unprecedented years with the pandemic, and so that greatly reduced the number of volunteers that we've been able to organize on our cleanups. By way of comparison, in FY19, during the same period of time, we had over 1,400 volunteers and almost 100 roadside cleanups. And that doesn't include, we also do a lot of river cleanups. And so that doesn't include those. Those are not included in this contract, so we don't count them for this purpose, but we do many more of those as well. So we usually work with 3,500 volunteers a year. And so the pandemic hit us hard in terms of gathering in groups and having large events. So we have a lot of projects, just not as many volunteers. And we're hoping now, as restrictions are lifting, that we're going to get back to pre-COVID numbers. Next slide, please. As far as waste reduction and education, we focus on composting workshops with an additional grant that the city received in sanitation. We were able to distribute countertop compost totes and hog wire composting bins, static bins for the backyard, to many folks who attended those workshops. And they really had to want them because we had all virtual workshops in the past year or so. And so they were obligated, if they wanted them, to come to our office and make us an arrangement to pick them up. So we did give out probably over 100 of those. Also did a social media campaign called Leave the Leaves, so that folks were leaving their leaves on the ground rather than raking them up or blowing them and putting them into the compost or leaf collection, just because they're great homes for pollinators to overwinter and also provide nutrients for the ground. But Leave the Leaves, we also were looking at using paper bag, yard waste bags instead of plastic so that they can be composted along with the leaves if they are composted. We have educational videos on plastics reduction, the transfer station, the path of trash. So lots of those can be found on our YouTube channel that we've put together and are still using. So we'll release them every so often and remind people that they're there. Recycling cart tagging has to do with going into a neighborhood and doing a survey, going cart to cart on recycling day before they're picked up and seeing if there is any visible contamination. So anything that shouldn't be in there that's not recyclable, if it's in there. And if they do find something, we have a friendly card that we put on the cart, like a door hanger, that checks off the things that aren't supposed to be there and has reminders of what can go in the recycling. And if there is no contamination, they get a card that says, great job. So that was just done this week. We have some volunteers here from colleges on alternative spring breaks, and an army of them went out on early Wednesday morning, 7 o'clock, before the recycling's picked up that was today, to do a survey and tag the carts. Do you want to ask?
Yeah, sorry if I missed this, but do you typically target certain neighborhoods when you do that, or how do you guys choose where to go?
Yeah, we work with the City of Asheville Sanitation Department and Kirby, who does the recycling pickups, to see where there's, what are the hot spots that we are seeing a lot of contamination. So that's how we're targeting there. We've also had targeted recycling outreach education for the public housing developments, starting in 2016 through the efforts of Greenworks. The public housing development began to get recycling for the first time, and we did a big push for education at that time, and then just recently did another push for education in partnership with residents in Hillcrest. Let's see what else. So our hard to recycle events, I hope everybody's been to one or knows about them. We collect things like TVs, electronics, styrofoam, batteries, and hard-covered books and cardboard, and all sorts of things that aren't recyclable in your curbside bin. And so we hold them 6 times a year, 4 times in Buncombe County and 2 times in Henderson County. There's 2 events that are covered for Asheville that occur within the city limits and are covered as part of this grant. And those events are just becoming more and more popular. We had a hard time running them during the height of the pandemic, and we had to kind of streamline our operations and rely less. We usually have like 40 to 60 volunteers. We had, at one event, we had 10 staff. That was it. So it was kind of hard to do. But we've already collected this year alone since July, 40 tons of waste. So over 82,000 pounds of waste. Next slide, please. For our pollinator outreach and education, Asheville, the city of Asheville, is the home of Bee City USA. It started here in 2012, and Greenworks is working in partnership with the city to maintain that affiliate status that Asheville has. So, and then we also, Greenworks has its own pollinator programming. We started in 2020, we started a certified pollinator habitat program, and we already have, we're close to reaching 100 gardens. We're at like 98 or 99. And the 100th garden that's certified will receive a big gift package from Reams Creek Nursery. So if you want to certify your garden, you might be that person who wins that package. We also coordinate the Bee City USA Asheville Leadership Committee that meets each month. And now we're in the 10th year. So we're having the 10th anniversary celebration all year long with events and programs that the Leadership Committee is planning and implementing. We also helped install 2 pollinator habitats on the Wilma Dykeman Greenway. One before it was named the Wilma Dykeman Greenway, we call it the Rad Hab Pollinator Garden. And then a more naturalized meadow is located closer to Gene Webb Park on the Wilma Dykeman Greenway. Next slide, please. For our urban forestry program, we actually don't do, under our contract with the city, we don't plant trees, which is interesting, but all of that's not financially supported by the city of Asheville, but we work closely with the city on many things related to urban forestry, including helping to maintain the Tree City USA certification since 1979. We held 4 public workshops on urban forestry, and then we're looking forward to one that will be on site in person specifically for developers to learn about the planting standards and specifications, especially related to the urban tree protection canopy ordinance. tree canopy protection ordinance. Sorry, get that in order. So that will be good for helping people to really understand what goes into properly planting and maintaining vegetation on site during development. We're also, we had an intern from UNCA who worked with us this past fall on researching the connections between different city plans, including the comprehensive plan and the sustainability management plan, and a potential urban forest master plan. So seeing how an urban forest master plan can further the goals of the existing city plans. We facilitate the Tree Protection Task Force, which is a group of individuals who are interested in protecting trees in Asheville and have done things such as put together in the past, have put together the Climate Change in Asheville's Urban Forest Symposium at the end of 2019, and have also been actively engaged in advocating for legislation to be passed, such as the Tree Canopy Protection Ordinance and the Zero Net Loss Tree Canopy resolution. We also have developed for schools and students lesson plans and educational videos that were really helpful during the pandemic, and we kind of relied on them to get our message out there, and now have just become part of our educational program. Next slide, please.
I think that's the last thing.
That's it's like we do so much more. I was looking for more things to report on, but okay, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Steve?
I do.
Yep, go ahead.
Good. I want to go back to the recycling and the volunteers that you have to check that stuff. I actually drove by in our neighborhood when some volunteers were swarming around, not mine, but it made me very nervous, and it made me want to rush home and make sure I'd done things right. Do you have a sense of how well or poorly the community is doing in recycling? And when you find that there are problems, is it more than just a frowny face? Do you sort of give, specific feedback on, yeah?
Yes. So the cart tagging that we do, that the volunteers do, is all part of a campaign called Recycle Right that is done across North Carolina. And there are cards that come along with, on the cart tag, it's a picture, a door hanger, piece of paper that, gets hung on a doorknob, but they go on the cart. And it does have pictures of what you can recycle on it. And there's a checklist of things, like if you did something wrong, that's checked off specifically. Yeah. And so, like, okay, well, next time don't put plastic bags in your recycling, that kind of thing. And the cart taggers go back to the same neighborhood weeks later to see if there's any difference. Why did you make that face?
Because it makes me double nervous. You're not only going to fail me the first time, you're going to come back and tell me I felt no.
No, we'll do better.
I will say, if you can hear, yeah, I thank you, Kira. My first question is how badly or well are people doing? Is this a big problem? Because I will tell you honestly, some things I don't want to personalize all of this, but I find some of the guidelines a little confusing, and I'm unsure about things to do. So my question is, how well is the community doing or not?
Well, they're not doing very well, or else we wouldn't need this program. But there are simple things that can be done to improve greatly. So the first and foremost, no plastic bags ever in your recycling. Like, that is huge, because they get tangled up in the machinery at Kirby as it's sorting, and shut down the equipment, and costs a lot of money to remove. And so, there is a time in the county, and still sometimes this is happening, where those blue clear recycling bags are like, that's what you would put your recycling in. And so we've had tours of Kirby so people can see, like, this is what happens with your recycling. And so that is like a major thing. If people can stop putting plastic bags in their recycling, that would help tremendously. And it is confusing. So as bad as it sounds and kind of counter to what Greenworks stands for, when in doubt, throw it out. Like, there's something called wishful recycling or aspirational recycling, where people say, like, well, if I put it in there, there's a chance it could be recycled. And if I don't, it never will. But that is a wrong approach, because like things like a cups, plastic cups cannot be recycled in Buncombe County. And so, but people come here from all over and bring their recycling practices, from New York or California, where these things could be recycled, and are mucking up the whole system here because those can't be recycled. So learning, that card that Kira just put up on the screen, we have lots of those types of cards on our website. You can also download them and see there's like simple things to guide you on that. So, but thanks for trying. I mean, that's the most important thing. You don't have to be perfect, but please continue to recycle. Michael?
Thank you.
Yeah. What about bottle tops or tops to plastic jars? Are those supposed to be left off or put on?
They're supposed to be thrown out here. No lids, no caps. There's, that's the guidance now. It didn't used to be that way, but that's the guidance now. They just end up blown out of the machinery onto the floor of the recycling facility. Yeah, and I saw that pop up in the chat. Yeah, there's a tool on the city's website called Asheville Waste Wizard. And you put in something that you want to know if it can be recycled, and it'll tell you whether and where it can be recycled or not. And we get 90% of the calls that we get at Greenworks are about, can I recycle this? And so we've been sending people to the Waste Wizard, but all sorts of things, CDs, X-rays, you name it. So, but Anna?
Where does the waste from the hard to recycle events end up?
We have put a priority on making sure things are recycled domestically so that our e-waste isn't ending up polluting another country or being hazardously disassembled by children somewhere. And so the TVs and electronics are collected by Biltmore Iron and Metal Company, and they manage the recycling of those materials, taking out the metal and disposing of the plastic parts. Styrofoam gets taken to DART, and that is, styrofoam is carted away there now. We have someone in our community who recently received a grant to purchase a densifier, a mobile densifier. So that's what happens with styrofoam. It's mostly air, and it gets squished down to little pellets once it's densified, and then it gets recycled into new plastic products. But if we could have a densifier on site at these hard to recycle events, we would cut out the middleman of the having to ship these tractor trailers to like an hour and a half away to DART.
Is that something on your 5-year plan or?
Well, this community member, a volunteer who's helped out at our Hard to Recycles, he has received this grant. It's a matching grant. He's trying to come up with the rest of the funding to be able to do this, and then a business plan to use it. So we've invited him to give it a try at one of our recycling events. I think the city of Hendersonville or Henderson County has also looked into investing in that technology. So yeah, that's the big, it seems like a shame to have this recycling event and then have the carbon footprint of shipping all this styrofoam to another location to be recycled. So, Yeah, and I think, I mean, the cardboard and stuff gets recycled locally. We also have TerraCycle, which takes things like toothpaste tubes and other things like that, but you have to look on our list. We get a lot of people bringing household hazardous waste and paint to our events, and just gotta look at the website and look at the list and see what we take and don't take. Our next one is going to be not in Buncombe County, but at Blue Ridge Community College on April 2nd. Maggie?
Yeah, I have a question about, and it's a little bit of a wishful thinking question, but has there ever been any discussion of having a permanent hard to recycle location that could house things for a longer period of time? And I realize there's a budget issue there, and where do you do that and everything, but that seems like one of the biggest problems from my personal perspective. Is I'm like, and I think from a lot of people I've spoken with, like, I'm holding on to this like small amount of this thing and this small amount of this thing, and I'm trying to figure out where I can bring it, and I've got to hang on to that for 6 months, and in the meantime it's like rolling around in my trunk while there's all kinds of logistical things there. And like, it seems like maybe there's an opportunity where Kirby or the other contractors with the city just can't handle some of that stuff right now, and maybe that's a good stepping stone. And I know you don't have the answer to that right now, and it's like a big question, but it just putting that idea out there as something that we should, I feel like as Sacee members and other people should throw our weight behind and try to support that concept for Asheville, especially with the population growing as it is, and the budget for the sanitation department remaining the same for the past 7 years and already being underfunded, and growing problem.
A little bit of an answer for that. Yes, that would be good. There are places where you can take some of these things already, not the styrofoam, but electronics and TVs you can take to Biltmore Iron and Metal. You can take to the landfill. There's a fee involved in in recycling TVs. You can take your large cardboard or hardcover books to Kirby. But then you're traveling all over the county instead of just to one event. And I recently went to Atlanta, and I saw they have kind of the hard to recycle location that's open all the time, and it's massive. I don't know that we have the land that the county or the city would be willing to dedicate to that use. And that stuff has to go somewhere. I mean, there's other costs involved with that. We've been asked to do, we already do 6 hard to recycles a year. We've been asked to do them like, why don't you do it every month? And it's just a tremendous amount of work that goes into it, with all the, mostly volunteers, but there's just so much work that goes into it. And so like, we're really working on not doing hard to recycles and kind of getting to the point where there aren't the materials that need to be taken care of in that way. We're not going to recycle our way out of the problems that we have with waste in our society. We're just going to have to start coming up with, alternatives to things like styrofoam. And I know that they're out there already, but that needs to become more widespread. And I honestly think that by giving people the hard to recycle opportunity for styrofoam, it's just like, well, I can keep using styrofoam and getting things with styrofoam, and I'll have a place to put it. I can have my Chick-fil-A and eat it too. So rather than just getting rid of the styrofoam stuff in the first place. But I could go on and on, so I'll just cut myself off there. But if there's any more questions, or if you want to contact me, you can reach me at dawn@ashevillegreenworks.org. Thank you.
Just on that note, I know that Where, the shop downtown, has recently increased some of their recycling. They take wine corks now. They collect TerraCycling materials and a few other programs like that. But again, it's a tiny amount of stuff that you're struggling to recycle versus this ocean of waste, as you say, that's just nonstop.
We have Mind Your Plastic May coming up. So we do that where we're encouraging eliminating single-use plastics from your life all month long, and hopefully for the beyond that as well. And so we also have a plastics reduction task force that meets, trying to get back up to meeting more regularly now that restrictions are lifting. That's advocating for reductions in single-use plastic waste. So thank you all for having me here today, and I'll sit back and listen again.
Thank you, Dawn. We really appreciate that. Obviously, we care a lot about this topic. Okay, up next, item 3C on the agenda is an update on the open space amendment. Allison Ormsby.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm going to keep this short, but there were some questions because at our last meeting, Vidila gave another presentation about the open space amendment. And Maggie and I have been attending about 16 meetings over the past year. And I just wanted to say it's still a little foggy. As of right now, Sacee has not taken a position on that amendment. So I'm not advocating either way. I just wanted to let everybody know that it's still unresolved. And certain groups have taken a no position, like the neighborhood councils and the Urban Forest Commission, and Greenworks has also actually issued a statement against it. But I guess I'm opening it up if anybody has any questions, but it is in fact very hard to understand, as you probably noticed from last meeting's presentation. Oh, is Dawn allowed to ask questions?
Am I? I'm sorry. I know I'm the public, but
I'm not sure what the protocol is on this. I feel like maybe you're not allowed.
Okay.
Right. Genuinely, this is just for Sacee members.
Yeah, sorry.
Unfortunately.
Hopefully in the future when we have maybe hybrid whatever mode of delivery, we can have public comment more real live
It was
time.
just a correction to the Urban Forestry Commission opposed it.
Yes.
And Greenworks did not take a position. So that's.
Oh, okay. So anyway, Sacee as of right now has not taken a position. And Maggie and I are the subcommittee, but it's so hard to understand that I think I would be nervous to take a position at this point. Chris has a question.
Has there been any changes since Vidila presented to us?
Yeah, I believe there actually was one more change in that. And so some of my hesitation is actually like point of process, because it actually has not been a consensus process, and it keeps kind of getting amended on the fly and not going back to the full committee. So there was, I heard through the grapevine that there was one more amendment sort of in another meeting that I did not attend. So it's still a living document, I would say. I don't know if Maggie wants to say any more on this. No. Okay.
I guess a follow-up question too is just maybe a reminder, or I'm not sure if that's the right word, but is there a timeline that someone's shooting for as it relates to having this completed?
I mean, Vidila is trying to take it to city council, like kind of ASAP. But I think that's why some of the committee members were feeling kind of rushed, and that there wasn't consensus. So it's unclear. It was going to go in February, then it got delayed. So I'm not actually sure on what the current next step is. Sorry to not be clearer about this.
Maggie's making a funny face.
I know. She's feeling the pain of all these meetings. I think, well, anyway, I'm just going to try to keep it neutral and just say it's confusing.
Well, I have a note here from Sage indicating that she was sorry she's unable to attend today. She'll watch the presentations later online. She has 2 days of council retreat starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. and Friday at 9 a.m. If the committee has any input or items they'd like me to mention, please send me any info tonight. We're also expecting the Sunrise Group to assemble and urge us to fund climate justice initiative. So I don't know if this is something that we want to, talk to Sage about, but if Fadilla is going to council tomorrow, I'm not sure.
I don't think he is.
Putting that out there. Okay.
And I'm not sure, I'm looking to Bridget, but I'm not sure we're allowed to bring up new things that weren't on the agenda.
Right. So I would say you can reach out as individuals, but since we didn't put this as an agenda item, there can't be a collective vote on something to move forward, unfortunately.
I mean, I would just remind us that there are things that we have supported in the past, and I think we still support those things.
And that's why we had our annual report that Sacee put together. If you recall, we moved up the date from when we had previously done it before, so that could be a part of that conversation. So just so you know that is part of the reason behind that. So that input's already been given.
Excellent.
All right, that's all I have.
Point. Thanks, Bridget. Any other questions on open space? All right. Next item on the agenda is 3D update from the Office of Sustainability. Bridget.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Energy Program Coordinator from the Office of Sustainability. And as Sacee knows, and probably all of our community partners and members of the public, but Amber Weaver, who is currently our Chief Sustainability Officer, has taken a new position with the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. And so she will be leaving the city at the end of this month. We don't have a transition plan in place at this moment in time, but I will keep you all posted as that work unfolds. And I just wanted to mention that she wasn't able to join us today. She got her wisdom teeth pulled. So she's resting. Ouch, right? And also that there's an opportunity to both say goodbye to Amber Weaver and also celebrate some of our youth. I believe you got a flyer with your packet this week, but on Saturday from 5 to 7, there's a reception at YMI. So some of you may have recalled that during the Climate Justice Initiative work, there was some work with the youth to talk about climate and kind of how that shows up, and it can be expressed through art. And so our youth has put together an exhibit that will be on display at the Asheville Art Museum. I'm not entirely sure how long the exhibit will be up. Kira might be able to answer that question, but on Saturday, the museum is actually free for community members, but you can stop by another time if that's more convenient for you. And then again, there'll be this reception and Amber will be there. So if you want to say goodbye and also celebrate our community, that would be a really great opportunity. The other thing I wanted to tell you about, which was also something that kind of floated around, there's a link to an article on our meeting folder, which is posted online, as well as sent out a link that talks about the boards and commissions restructure that is currently kind of in development and underway. So I think Anne and Anna have participated in some of those sessions, and I will put a link in the chat for the public input page. So there's no update currently at the moment. They're still in kind of the community engagement and feedback on kind of the proposal that was put out there, which was basically to look at how could we change our boards and commissions to be more consistent with the comprehensive plan and therefore be more in broader categories instead of being so subject matter expert specific, so that we could be having these conversations that kind of cut across maybe an individual department, right? And so that's kind of the concept that's out there. And right now, the clerk's office is leading this effort and looking for feedback. So that's the place to stay tuned on continual opportunities to engage or what's going on. So that's that. And I think if Anne or Anna want to say anything, or anyone else who's participated in these sessions so far wants to share any feedback, I can leave some space for that.
A couple of thoughts I had. I've been to 2 of these sessions now, and I like the idea of broadening the scope of the commissions. I worry a little bit about going from 28 down to 4. It's a big jump. And secondly, I worry about this concept of working groups, which still seems very muddy to me as I listen to the second one. I don't quite get it. To me, it's not exactly like having a specialties task force who knows stuff and you say, could you sort this out and come back? The proposal is to have I forget the right name for this, but a list of potential participants on any future work group or quote unquote task force, whatever it's called. And that you would dip into that when you had a topic. And there is a lot of discussion about how many people would be there, how you would manage that, just a lot in my mind. And I voiced this in both settings. I feel like it's going to become very cumbersome and difficult for people on a committee like this or a commission like we're on right now to manage. So while the idea may be good in some ways, I just feel like it's not going to work well that way at all. So I don't know if Anna had any more thoughts about that, but I've expressed it, and they've now set up believe me, I had a whole career in government, so it's okay for me to say this. This is the epitome of government and government. They're going to have a working group on working groups. So I decided I wasn't going to be on that, but it might be something Anna's going to do. I don't know. Anna?
The only input I wanted to contribute was, I think the goal of this is to help, like Bridget said, just have more communication across all boards. And in order to do that, narrowing the amount of people that are advisors to city council is probably a good idea. I think that shutting it down too much may present a problem of transparency. And that's what I've heard from the public that has kind of resounded in me is, I think only having a select few be advisors to the city in that role may feel less transparent to our community. So that's...
And I think their solution, Anna, is to add working groups and then being able to have all these other people. But I feel like that's going to be a juggling act that we're all going to struggle with. And I think the concept was to make 4 groups of commissions, 4 commissions that would feed directly into city council, similar groups. So they would bunch the topics for the city council in 4 topic areas, and then each of the commissions, whatever they're going to be called, would fit into one of those. The idea being there was much better connection between city council and the commissions, better support supposedly from staff, maybe 3 people rather than 1, and more involvement from the liaisons. That's one of the in their mind anyway, good ideas about this. I don't know. I still feel I think we need to do better than we're doing, but I think going from 28 down to 4 is probably going to be a challenge. And I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there needs to be some restructuring and maybe culling, of course. I think that, having this many boards is kind of very disconnecting sometimes. It feels very disconnected a lot of the times. So I am excited about that aspect of it. Yeah, I'm curious to see what the outcome looks like and how engaged we can all continue to be in the future. But I think these working groups, we've been able to, express those concerns, and I think the city's done a good job upholding these workshops to hear us out in ahead of time so that they can address those concerns down the road. So we'll see. We'll keep you all posted. Are there any questions?
If there's no questions, I'll just say, I'll try and be sending out emails when there's additional opportunities to come up and engage. But again, like that public input page is there for historical knowledge to date and like future opportunities. So please feel free to plug in that way. And then the last thing I wanted to check in on was virtual meetings. So some of you know, City Council has gone back to meeting in person. At this point in time, the city doesn't have the capacity for all the boards and commissions to do in-person meetings that are also then live streamed. And so we're staying virtual at this time. As soon as I get more information, then I can check in with you all to see where your comfort level is and interest as we have that opportunity, hopefully in the near future. So that's all I had. Chris, you got a question?
Yeah, sorry if I missed this date about the board restructure conversation, but is there a date at which public input will be more or less cut off because they need to present it to City Council?
There will be at some point. I don't think that date has been identified. I think it's still in the data gathering situation. So I think there will probably be more opportunities, but at this point, I don't know what the next steps are.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris, I think it's a long way off from being any decision point. I think there's so many questions and thoughts and concerns and input that I think it'll take a while. And so you should be able to get an opportunity to be involved if you want to. And then whenever they decide, they're talking about, as I recall, Bridget, a fairly lengthy transition. It's not like one day they're going to dissolve all the commissions and start from scratch. I think it'll be, I can't even imagine how that's going to work.
Most likely be like a phased approach if that's how it went. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it could take a couple of years. I don't know. I'm just making that up, but it's not a quick thing, right?
Right. It's not happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I was looking at the next step section from that page you sent and just, because it doesn't mention any dates, it's just kind of, this is what we're hoping to do next. So thanks for clarifying that.
No problem.
And going back to the conversation about staying virtual, from what I understand, we're still going to try to maintain meetings every other month. Is that correct, Bridget?
At this time, that's what we're sticking with.
Great. So everyone can kind of populate your calendars based on that information for the rest of the year. That we'll be trying to meet every other month. And we can certainly meet more frequently than that with our working groups. Yeah, any other questions? Well, I hope to see you all on Saturday at the YMI Cultural Center. Michael, did you have a question?
I'm going to try to be there, Anna. Well, I think it would be really fun.
We can't hear you, Michael. Also, Anna, I sent you, we did receive 3 written public comments.
Oh, okay. Great.
So I did send them to you. They are there's some lengthy in there. So if you want to read those, leave up on your court. They will be linked in our meeting minutes too. Okay. So folks can access them.
Michael, did you want to ask your question while I'm pulling up those?
We're still got more of the agenda to go through. Is that correct?
Nope. After public meeting, that's it.
So we're in new business. Can I bring up a new business item? Is that right?
Normally, when there's an item on the agenda, you have to ask ahead of time to add to the agenda. But I mean, you can certainly ask a question right now if you have something.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. I have a question. The reason I have this picture in the background, it's all about electric police cars. And the city, has 700 vehicles. We don't know how many police and where they're located. My understanding is we don't have really good data, telematics data or ADL data as to miles traveled, et cetera. So it makes it very difficult to determine how our vehicles, which have a $20 million capital investment and certainly an extraordinary amount of multi-million-dollar annual cost, could be replaced with electric versions. So I'm wondering, given our role is to develop and recommend policy, some of you may have seen recently, like New York City has just purchased 185 of the Mustang Mach-E electric cars for police, and then a 250 Tesla. And they did that because it turns out that they're better in performance, they're cheaper, and they're safer and faster. And so I'm wondering how can we pursue getting better data on those 700? For example, are they tracked as to certainly at time of replacement, but also given the fact that many of them have higher operating costs currently, they could be considered for replacement. How can we help facilitate that? How can we get better data? Whether is it tracked and we just haven't got the data, or is it a need for better tracking of data?
So I don't think anybody is prepared to answer your question right now. I think maybe the appropriate avenue for that discussion would maybe be starting with one of our working groups, and then we can build on it from there and potentially add it to the agenda. But I'm certainly interested in it myself. So I think.
Yeah, because that's step one. Step two is that a lot of the police departments, fire departments, community centers have the opportunity for fast charging to complement those electric vehicles, which can also then satisfy the building energy requirements in a microgrid format. So those offer much larger annual savings. And the financing on this is now available in multi-mode, public or private financing. And that's a third component. So I guess the question then is, what working committee would you recommend I follow up with? Or anybody?
I guess I'll add, Michael, this topic came up on previous calls. I can't remember exactly when. And I think it may have been a working group, whatever we call ourselves, because there was a microgrid group. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that group, Michael, that has presented to the city. And there was a discussion about the new fire station down on Broadway. And I think I'm not speaking on behalf of the city, but I think what was happening was that, we had a great opportunity to try to plan for future fleet electrification, but no one came to the table to offer some good rules of thumb that they might be able to consider, knowing the fact that they were going to put the shovels in the ground in a couple months. And so, I think, again, I think we're a little bit behind the 8 ball as it relates to how we can plan for this, knowing the fact that we're going to build a brand new, facility, but, we weren't able to get the right people involved at the right time to plan for a massive change to the building, electrification and load on the building. At least that was my takeaway from it. And, I'm sure there's oodles of conversations we could have around the idea of like, okay, if we're going to get 300 cars, like where do they get charged? Who's going to own that infrastructure? And I feel like those are really hard questions. And I think that's a requirement as it relates to the fact if you're going to choose to buy a vehicle or not, you got to plan for it, right? But I haven't been involved in any other conversations outside of the microgrid group. Allison, I'm not sure if you were going to add to that or not.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, Michael and I are both in the microgrid group. So yeah. I think it's the energy subcommittee. Don't we have an energy subcommittee? So I think it sounds like the microgrid group needs to be synergizing with that subcommittee much more frequently. And I would recommend a proposal to Anna is that each of our subgroups, I feel like we should have subcommittees. I feel like we should be on the agenda for our next meeting. Like we should have subcommittee updates at every meeting. I'm proposing that.
Yeah, thank you. I liked that email that you sent earlier today. And we have been doing that in the past. I'm not sure why. I think the climate group hasn't had much to report on, so we wouldn't have had anything to report on. But I certainly think having that space on the agenda in future meetings is really important, especially.
I think it's good to have it on there every meeting. And if there's no report, you just say there's no report.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think moving the microgrid discussion to the energy working group is a great idea. Do we know when the energy group is meeting again?
We don't currently have a meeting date on the book, so I will follow up.
Awesome.
Who is on the energy committee working groups? So Chris.
Bridget, Chris, Steve. I think, is that it?
I think
That's
that's
it.
So Michael, if you want to join them, you're more than welcome to.
Please.
All right.
And I'll draft a memo and send it around to the list of energy committee folks. I mean, it has relevance obviously to the climate, and I don't know the other working groups, but that's another case where it may be multi-working group interest or insights.
Remember, we have a restriction on the number of people you can copy on emails.
So yeah, I was just going to remind you, since you're new, Michael, that you might not know this, but you can send something out to the whole group, but we can't do reply all because that is like discussion and deliberation, which needs to happen in a public space. So so FYI, when we have these conversations, we just need to make sure that they happen in a properly public noticed way. So you can send out whatever you want, but if you want feedback, you either need to ask people to reply individually so that you could like compile it and then present it to the group during a meeting, or, have individual correspondence. But
thank you.
Don't solicit a reply all situation, please.
And does that apply the same with sending to each working group members? Same thing. I send it out to half a dozen members of a working group.
I mean, 6 people. This group is 9, so a quorum of this group would be 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be under 4. Under 4.
Under 4. All right. Thank you.
Okay. My battery is on battery saver mode and I cannot find my charger. So I'm going to start reading the public comment. If I black out, you'll know what happened to me. Okay. First public comment from Alan Escovitz. As active community member and neighborhood leader, I suggest Sacee take a position that strongly opposes the adoption of the Open Space Amendment to be discussed on your March 16th agenda. The OSA is philosophically the antithesis of Sacee's perceived mission, since it represents anti-environment position and serves only to undermine our community's efforts to promote needed affordable housing. Asheville's affordable housing situation has worsened, with prices far outstripping wages, according to data reviewed by the City Council during a January 26 affordable housing workshop. The OSA does nothing to address this problem since it sets the AMI at 80% rather than a more realistic 60% or below for our working class population. According to the Bowen report, 18.9% of Asheville's renters are severely cost burdened, paying more than 50% of their income on housing. The OSA will only amplify this problem. Finally, OSA will have direct and detrimental impact on the overall sustainability of Asheville's green infrastructure, which Sacee's recommended policies support and serve to protect. I wish to thank you in advance, considering my concerns. Next comment from Sharon Sumrall. I highly recommend that Sacee oppose the open space amendment in the recommendation to City Council. As a member of NAC, Neighborhood Advisory Commission, and UFC, Urban Forestry Commission, both of which oppose OSA, NAC has several concerns. One of them is how anticipated infill development will continue to impact residential neighborhoods, specifically regarding buffer and tree canopy, affordable housing, and stormwater management. They are asking for assessments and what are the unforeseen circumstances with this ordinance. UFC is opposed to the OSA for several reasons. One is the major percentage reductions in the dimensions requirements that allows double counting for mandatory requirements, such as a property setback and property buffers that are already separately required under city laws, and the current ambiguity in the fee in lieu provisions, as well as other concerns. There are also major concerns about the increase of impermeable surfaces, creating more heat island effects, and the general overall ambiguity of the OSA. With Sacee's focus on being on the environment and land use planning, I would hope that Sacee will concur that the current iteration of this ordinance is needing more clarification and broader community input. Thank you for your consideration. Okay. Last comment. I can't see the bottom who wrote it, but I will read it. I ask you to vote no on the open space amendment because this proposal will undermine the goals of your committee to promote sustainable economic development and sustainable land use planning. If implemented, the open space amendment, OSA, would lead Asheville down a path of unsustainable economic development and poor land use planning. The Urban Forestry Commission has twice voted to oppose the OSA for many reasons that are relevant to Sacee's mission. For example, the UFC opposed the OSA because the lack of an open space fee in lieu policy to guide and enable the acquisition of new city parks to compensate Asheville's green infrastructure for the loss of open space is unacceptable from the standpoint of rational urban planning and urban canopy protection. And the commission is concerned that the steep reduction in open space and pervious open ground resulting from ratification of the Open Space Amendment will prevent the Urban Forestry Commission's vision of 50% canopy restoration in Asheville by 2040 from being realized, due to the reduction in pervious surface area where new trees may be planted, and the reduction in existing urban canopy that would result from steep reductions in open space across Asheville would be detrimental to city residents through the loss of ecosystem services and the degradation of public health and quality of life. Urban planning dimensions. The urban planning dimensions of this issue are significant. While urban deforestation and the proliferation of impervious surfaces throughout the city are promoted by the OSA, the proposal also leaves Asheville without a means to compensate the city for the loss of urban space, urban canopy, and ecological function caused by the intensified development. The OSA includes fee in lieu provisions that allow developers to pay fees in order to avoid providing up to 100% of the required open space, which fees would be used to buy public parks to compensate the city for loss of open space resulting from development. Just a second, I lost my place. Let's see. However, the OSA fails to set a policy on precisely how and when open space fee in lieu funds may and shall be spent for the purchase of new public lands for the city, threatening to cause the city to miss time-sensitive opportunities to purchase the best available parcels for new public parks. This is against the backdrop of a city attorney's office opinion that instructs the city not to spend its open space fee in lieu funds to purchase new public property due to ongoing litigation over the use of these funds. In other words, the OSA would set the city up to sit on its hands and watch as developers gobble up the last best opportunities to establish new parks for city residents. untangling the details of the OSA to see a clear picture. OSA proponents have made an effort to use the complexity of this topic to muddy the waters and cover over the environmental impacts that the proposal would clearly have. However, deep cuts to the open space requirements would clearly cause significant environmental impacts within city limits. To demonstrate this point, a few preliminary points are important to note. 1, generally speaking, open space is defined as anywhere a developer can't put a building, parking lot, driveway, or street. There are some other exemptions, such as power line, gas pipeline right-of-ways. But for the sake of conversation, that's essentially it. 2, according to the 2018 Davie Resource Group study on Asheville's urban canopy, 45% of the city is covered in tree canopy. 3, the OSA would make significant cuts to open space requirements. To give some illustrative examples, 1, relative to Asheville's existing open space laws, the proposal would slash the minimum size of open space by up to 80% and cut the total amount of open space required by up to 50%. 2, once those open space reductions are in place, the OSA would provide loopholes that would allow developers to avoid even those meager requirements. For example, it would relieve some developers from providing up to 80% of their required open space due to the use of, and that's where the comment ends. Apologies. Okay, that is all for public comment, which is the last item on the agenda. Therefore, we can now officially adjourn as Sacee. Thank you all so much for your time today. I really appreciate the good conversation, and I hope to see you all at Amber Celebration at the YMI Cultural Center on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.